The Chamber was focused on a number of different issues during the legislative session, but some of the big topics that we were following included government reform. The specific bill that we were following on a regular basis included the reduction of the ability for nepotism to occur in local governments, as well as conflicts of interest. So if a firefighter was sitting on the city county council, he couldn't be an active firefighter because ultimately he was voting on his own budget. So they were trying to restrict that. So it should allow for a little more transparency in government and a higher level of confidence from the citizens. Additionally, we were looking into and following the mass transit effort, which the Chamber has been very involved with over the last couple of years. The mass transit effort, we had a drafted bill which went through committee but failed to pass out of the House Ways and Means Committee for a number of different reasons, but most notably because of the specific language that included right to work in that bill. It wasn't necessary for the bill to be able to move forward, and the debate never really revolved around the pros and cons of transit, but got stuck on the right to work issue, which was in the bill. The bill did receive a number of votes to pass it out of committee from a bipartisan group, and we anticipate that continued bipartisan support will continue leading into 2013's legislative session. One final issue we followed over the State House included the smoking ban. The smoking ban was a hot topic, mainly because of the local interest in the recent efforts to try to strengthen our current ban in the city of Indianapolis. The smoking ban was heavily debated, and the final result created a bill that restricted smoking in just about every public place, with the two main exemptions being bars and casinos and racinos here in the state of Indiana. So that is a huge victory for the efforts to try to improve health and safety in the workplace, and we were very happy with the result on that issue. As we look towards the 2013 legislative session, the big issue that will be in front of all legislators will be the budget that moves forward for the next 2 years. But some of the issues the Indy Chamber will be focusing on again will include mass transit. We are continuing the effort to try to push forward to get a bill passed that allows for local flexibility to create a multi-county, multimodal system that will benefit both the workforce and those individuals that decide that they would rather not use vehicles to get around the city. We will continue to work to push for government consolidation and reform to allow for taxpayer money to be spent more wisely, and we'll look to ways to strengthen neighborhoods here in the city of Indianapolis.
Some of the issues we followed and worked on this legislative session were education, workforce development, and immigration. Now, education, there were some very serious legislative proposals presented this session, but compared to last legislative session, which was really historical nationwide, it almost seemed anticlimactic. But some of the legislation that actually got through had to deal with transparency with superintendent contracts so that the public is more aware of what's going on in a hiring process. There was also a study committee created which deals with the grading system of the school corporation and also the teacher evaluations. That way will help us define more accountability with the schools and the teachers and what's going on in each school. There's also some definitions and more clarification with regard to turnaround schools and the special management teams so that there's more accountability. There's now a requirement of them having a public meeting and reporting their findings and what's going on with student success in each of the turnaround academies. Along with education, we also spearheaded some initiatives with regard to education and immigration. And what it was is we really spearheaded the effort to modify language that was enacted last legislative session, which really forced undocumented immigrants to pay out-of-state tuition. This session, there was a huge effort to have that modified or amended so that undocumented immigrants would be able to pay in-state tuition, and just those who were already enrolled from 2011 until now. That effort was defeated in the Senate, but it was still a very successful experience because we were able to get it out of committee and even onto third readings, which means we have a lot of support from other organizations to continue moving forward with this type of an effort. In addition to the effort to amend legislative language from last session, we were successful in getting a study committee created to study that very issue of in-state tuition versus out-of-state tuition and that impact on undocumented immigrants and our economy. One huge issue that was covered actually nationwide and statewide was the right to work. And that was something that we took at heart and we studied very thoroughly. And in the end, that legislation did pass, and it passed very early in session. What that actually means to all of us in the state of Indiana who are employees is that if you work at a facility or an organization where there is a union, you are no longer required to pay the union fees or dues unless you elect to be a member of the union. The unions are still viable and allowed within the state of Indiana and can continue to grow and add membership. It's just that now you only pay the dues if you are electing to be a member of the union. One issue that was successful in passing was the inheritance tax. And that actually has a benefit to small businesses in that now, depending upon the value of your business upon the death of the owner, you currently must pay estate taxes or inheritance tax. Well, now with this new legislation, that inheritance tax is being phased out over the next 9 years so that in 2022, there will be no inheritance tax. And that will be a great benefit so that small businesses can continue to run their businesses and pass them on to the next generation. Some of the efforts that we are going to continue to work on this upcoming legislative session of 2013 will be education and workforce development because they are completely interrelated. The workforce will grow as we educate our general student population and make them career or college ready. If we don't educate, we will incarcerate, and that's part of the connectivity in our workforce development is finding ways to get ex-offenders and veterans back into the workforce. We will also continue to look at ways to help educate immigrants and undocumented immigrants and see how we can continue to push that amendment.